What is the worst secret your significant other is keeping from you, but that you actually know? Story 1. When we were in the hospital for some strange pain I had, uninsured, and the doctors thought it might be cancer, I lost it a bit. She was so brave for me. But then her mother called. She went into the bathroom to talk, but she didn't know that the sound echoed pretty loudly into the room. I heard her break down, sobbing, telling her mom she didn't know how we were going to pay for treatment and that it looked really bad. I'll never tell her I heard her, but God, it was heartbreaking. When she came out, you wouldn't even know she'd been upset. She hid it so well. She sat right down and told me everything was going to be fine with such determination and certainty. She literally took out her computer right then and there and started making a spreadsheet of our finances to fit in cancer treatment. In that moment, I knew how much she loved me and how important it was for her to be brave for me. I don't know why, but I felt so calm after that. I haven't broken down like that since. Even with worse news, I guess she makes me strong. God, I love her so much. Story 2. Everybody likes snacks, right? Some of us like chips, others like fruit or yogurt. Well, my wife likes croutons. Frozen croutons, to be exact. And she tries to hide it like an alcoholic hides bottles of vodka. Where does she hide the croutons? In the freezer. At first, I'd put them in the pantry when we got home from the grocery store, but they'd always end up back in the freezer. I'd be like, hun, what's up with the croutons in the freezer? And she'd act like she had no idea what I was talking about. Here's the thing. I've tried them, and now I'm addicted too. So now I openly eat cold croutons out of the freezer as a snack, and she tells me what a weirdo I am while she eats half the bag with me. I have no idea why she's embarrassed to admit what a genius she is for discovering such an awesome snack. By the way, the best kind is Chatham Village garlic and cheese flavor. Story 3. A few years back, I was dating a girl who had just graduated with her bachelor's degree, so I took her out for a night on the town. She and our friends got absolutely smashed, and since this was before Uber, I volunteered to be the designated driver. Around 2 a.m., she was completely tanked and insisted on getting Crystal burgers. She was very adamant about it, so I stopped by Crystal's and ordered a steamer pack, enough for both of us and some leftovers. She ate around 8 of them. I got her home, helped her into bed, and she immediately passed out. I was sitting next to her, watching some TV, when I smelled something and realized she had just soiled herself. She was the kind of person who would be mortified if anyone found out, so I just left. The next day I called her and told her I had dropped her off, got her some water, and headed home. I never mentioned what happened, so to this day she thinks it happened after I left. I probably should have stayed and helped her clean up, but I knew she would have cried over it and then avoided me for weeks. Story 4. Even though we had been married for 25 years, my wife and I always invented silly private jokes between us. I was lamenting the fact that we had fostered a Siamese cat from an adoption group that eventually got adopted, and I really missed her. One day we were browsing through the website of the local pound, and a Siamese named Montague popped up. The photo they took of Montague was epic, a classic applehead Siamese, neutered, about 5 years old with horribly crossed eyes. Whoever took that photo managed to make him look both proud, distinguished, and adorably insane. Like some eccentric guy who frequents a bar, claiming he's the Emperor of the United States, and everyone buys him around because, despite his craziness, he's charming. We started making up stories about Montague in a spoof of the world's most interesting man. Week after week, we checked to see if he had been adopted, but nobody wanted a crazy-looking, cross-eyed Siamese. Everyone at the pound said he was affectionate and had been there for quite some time. Sadly, this would be our last private joke together. My wife, who had a terminal illness, suddenly took a turn for the worse and passed away rather quickly. We thought we had more time, but she had sarcoidosis, and her lungs had already been weakened by repeated pneumonia. When she got the flu, her compromised immune system couldn't fight it off. She went into a coma and died a week later. My sister helped me with the funeral and took care of many things, including contacting everyone in my wife's phone. She asked why the Alexandria Pound was trying to reach my late wife via voicemail. Apparently, my wife had applied to adopt Montague as a surprise gift. She paid the adoption fee and had scheduled a visit to adopt him, but she died before the appointment. Unfortunately, my wife had put the adoption solely in her name, and the pound staff were pretty rude about it. They insisted I would have to pay the adoption fee again, and they were upset that she didn't show up. At the time, it was all too much to handle, and my sister gave them an earful. They ended up telling her to go to hell. Story 5. My soon-to-be ex-wife met another guy about a year and a half ago. She was so bad at hiding it that I honestly thought she wanted to get caught, posting romantic stuff on her Instagram when we hadn't been romantic in ages. I confronted her, but she lied, even with solid evidence. A few months later, things started disappearing from the house, and it was obvious she was moving out. Then we began to run out of money every month, even though I have a pretty decent job. I realized she was basically stealing money by paying her bills twice a month with 3 to 4 times the minimum payment while neglecting mine. I let it slide for a while before finally confronting her. She didn't admit to it. I decided to pull my paycheck from our joint account, and that's when she said she was leaving but claimed she'd be homeless. The next day, she had changed her Facebook back to her maiden name and posted a picture of herself with the other guy at their new place. I'm not sure if this counts as betrayal, but it definitely feels like it. Story 6. Before my ex-wife and I first split up, I found out she was hiding a storage unit, essentially keeping a whole apartment's worth of stuff stashed away, just in case the breakup didn't go well. She worked graveyard shifts, and one night, while using her laptop to follow along with The Walking Dead story sync, I noticed her iMessage was linked to her MacBook. I don't usually check her messages, but the constant notifications made it clear she was having a lengthy conversation. I opened it and found out she had sent a picture of a fully packed storage unit to her best friend in South Carolina. The unit was packed with furniture, appliances, basically everything she needed to start fresh on her own. I sat on that information for months just trying to process it. One night while we were sitting on the couch, I just turned to her and said, "So, I know about your storage unit." She looked like she'd seen a ghost, completely caught off guard because she thought she had been so sneaky. Surprisingly, the conversation went well. We ended up deciding to file for divorce, and it was finalized on March 3rd of this year. Story 7. My significant other is a veteran and pretty much the definition of manly. He doesn't talk about his personal life with friends and is generally a quiet guy. He's a traditional Southern gentleman who opens every door for everyone and addresses anyone older than him as ma'am and sir. His friends are the same way and often tease any guy who openly says nice things about their partner. One of his friends spilled the beans, though, and told me that one night, right after we met, they all got crazy drunk. My SO ended up telling everyone that I was the love of his life and that we were going to get married someday. Naturally, they all started teasing him and joking around. Then this one guy who didn't know him very well made a comment about me having nice breasts. My SO clocked him. The commotion was so intense that he's now banned from that bar. After his friend shared that story with me, I realized I had asked to go to that bar a few weeks prior, and he made some excuse about the drinks being overpriced. I'll never tell him I know, but if he asks me to marry him, I definitely will. Edit. For those saying he's going to abuse me, that's honestly ridiculous. You're judging him based on one story that he's genuinely ashamed of. We're both highly educated, socially progressive, empathetic, and loving people. I wouldn't stay with someone if I even suspected they might hurt me. Plus, the guy he hit has a history of saying crude things about women and being generally disrespectful. He's even had a few sexual assault allegations that mysteriously disappeared. He's not a good person. So, yeah, I don't feel bad about what happened. Edit 2. Marriage wasn't really on my radar until I met him. I love him more than I've ever loved anyone else. The idea of actually getting married isn't super important to me, but it means a lot to him since he's more traditional. When we first started having serious conversations about 5 years ago, including me telling him I'm bishul and about past relationships, I jokingly promised that if we ever did get married, I would let him plan the whole thing. Now, years later, he and my mom talk about the wedding like it's already a given. I think it's adorable, and I love that it means so much to him. We're both anthropologists, so I know he appreciates rituals more than I do, and I would never take that away from him. If I proposed, he would say yes and be happy, but it's important to him to be the one who does it. My brother is getting married this year, and I know my SO was going to propose, but he decided to wait because he wanted us to have our own anniversary year. He tells my mom everything, and she accidentally lets things slip because she's old and forgetful. What a sweetheart. Story 8. I found out my fiancé was planning to propose, but was taking his time because he wanted to get me an expensive ring. Honestly, I couldn't care less about that stuff. I'd marry him without a ring if it came down to it. That's not what's important to me. I decided to talk to his mom about it, and she suggested we go look at rings together. That way I could pick something more affordable, and she could casually tell him we had been shopping, and I had fallen in love with a ring he could actually afford. I know, a bit sneaky. Anyway, we found an amazing ring that was originally $500 but marked down to $100. I bought it, and his mom called him to say she had bought the ring as a surprise. He was thrilled. He proposed to me on Christmas Eve, and it was one of the best days of my life. He still has no idea I was involved in picking the ring, so he's keeping the secret that he doesn't know that I know. Story 9. When I was deployed in Afghanistan, I planned to use my earnings to buy a motorcycle since combat pay is better than regular pay. The problem was I didn't have a car, and I knew I'd be moving back to the Midwest in 8 months, where it's not exactly practical to have just a motorcycle. So I bought a car instead. Fast forward 2 years, I met my girlfriend and her 1-year-old son just after she ended a messy marriage. 2 years later, we moved in together. Throughout all that time, I still wanted to save for a motorcycle, but we had more important expenses, a new car for her, childcare costs, and just general living expenses. I put my dream on hold for our needs. She knew about my desire for a bike and finally agreed to let me spend up to $1,500 on one if I found a good deal. I found one on Craigslist for $2,000, and it turned out the seller was an old friend from a security guard job I had. He gave me a friend discount, bringing it down to $1,500. I told my girlfriend about the deal, and she said, "That's great. We'll get it if it's the one you want." What I didn't know was that she found the Craigslist ad, contacted my friend, and bought the bike for the full $2,000 without telling me. For a while, I was bummed because I thought someone else had bought it. My friend casually mentioned how lucky I was to have such a great girlfriend, which made me suspicious since he had never met her or knew her name. I played along, still acting disappointed while looking at other bikes. On my birthday, she blindfolded me, drove me to his house, and surprised me with the bike, complete with a bow on it. I admitted I had some suspicions, but told her how blown away I was by the surprise. She's definitely a keeper. Story 10. My grandmother remarried when my dad was in middle school after divorcing my biological grandfather. This was in the late 70s. Step-grandpa, SG, was a cool dad for a while, at least until my dad and his older brother went to college. After that, SG started becoming emotionally unstable, angry, and borderline abusive. For a long time, both SG and my grandma were in the redacted for privacy business. My dad and uncle eventually became attorneys and worked at what had become the family company. Years later, neither of them were working with SG and grandma anymore, and my mom managed most of the company. One day, a business associate quietly pulled my mom aside and mentioned seeing SG in public with a much younger man. My mom told my dad and uncle, and they did some digging. Turns out SG had been using company funds to buy cars, apartments, and other things for multiple young men. He was in his early 70s at the time. Shocked, they all went to my grandma's house when SG wasn't there to break the news to her. Her response? "Oh yeah, I've known that for years." She admitted she had suspected he was gay even before they got married. But nobody talked about that kind of thing back then. She knew about the affairs and even had a public health worker inform her that SG had HIV, giving her a test as well. She chose not to tell anyone for nearly 15 years. Eventually, they convinced her to divorce him, but it took ages to finalize. That's probably the most shocking secret ever kept in our family. Story 11. He has been hiding the fact that he's autistic from me for 10 years. To clarify, it's been a long, on-again, off-again relationship. But even when we weren't together, we remained good friends. He went through abusive therapy as a child, and because of that, he believes that hiding his autism is absolutely crucial. It's like trying to hide an elephant in a bathroom, though. Sometimes it's painfully obvious, and especially when he's not functioning at his best. So I've been playing this weird game of pretending I don't know he's autistic while putting in the effort to gently support him when he's struggling. The truth is, I know he has a formal diagnosis. He's so traumatized from institutional abuse under the guise of therapy that even hinting at it can trigger a meltdown. He thinks that if I knew, I wouldn't love him anymore. But the truth is, I've known for years, and I still love him. I adore him just the way he is. I just wish things could be easier and less terrifying for him. I want to help, but I don't know how, since he won't even admit that there's an issue. Story 12. We're not together anymore, but we're friends now after our breakup about 7 months ago. We got together at 17, and a few years later, we bought an apartment. Like most long-term relationships, we started getting used to each other, and the spark kind of faded. Then in June of last year, she told me, crying, that she had slept with another guy. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I never saw it coming and never thought she'd be capable of something like that. Looking back, I remembered how she'd started going out more and meeting friends. At the time, I didn't think anything of it, but after she confessed, I started putting the pieces together. In October, I made a bad decision. I went through her phone and Facebook messages while she was asleep. That's when I found out she'd been sting with several people, including a few old friends of mine and some of our former colleagues. I even saw messages with her friends where she joked about going through half the male population of our vicinity, paraphrasing. I never told her I went through her phone, but I did say, I'm starting to understand what you're doing when you're out. She denied everything. It's hard to describe the feeling of loving and hating someone so intensely at the same time. I thought about confronting her, but at this point, I'm not sure what good it would do. Maybe it's just better to move on and let it be. Story 13. This is about my ex. He always tried to hide the fact that he watched porn and masturbated, even though I knew he did. I'd feel him moving in the middle of the night, and it was the unmistakable rhythm of him, well, handling business. He'd turn down the volume on his phone, but the light from the screen would shine right into my face as I slept next to him. I'd wake up and just watch him quietly, looking at porn and getting off. The funniest incident happened when I got into my car to run some errands. He had his phone synced to my car's Bluetooth. I turned the car on, and after a few seconds, I heard unmistakable moaning and slapping sounds from what sounded like a pretty decent pour. The best part? His mom was in the car with me, and we both burst out laughing. I texted him after about 5 minutes of listening, saying, "Save that video, it sounds really hot, and I want to watch it with you." Suddenly, the sound stopped, and I got a frantic message back claiming he had been asleep and that his phone must have had a virus because he had no idea where the audio came from. I never understood why he tried to hide it from me. I always encouraged masturbation and watching porn, and I never hid it when I did it. The most bizarre exchange we ever had was one night after work. I asked him why he refused to masturbate in front of me. His exact response was, "I'm Catholic. It's better to spill my seed in the belly of a whore than to spill it on the ground." This was barely 10 minutes after we had just had S. I couldn't help but laugh. Story 14. I found out my wife had a credit card with a $2,200 balance on it. I confronted her about hiding it, and she admitted it. We paid it off right away. We had the money in the bank, so it was just pointless debt. The reason behind it? Her brother, who's in prison, manipulates her into sending him money. She promised me she wouldn't do it again. A few days ago, I drove her car and found an invoice stuck between the console and parking brake lever. Turns out she has another credit card with an $1,800 balance. She doesn't know I found out yet. Edit, a bit of backstory. We're married with kids and share a bank account. Early in our marriage, we lived in a small apartment attached to her parents' house. One night, her crackhead brother snuck in while we were asleep and stole money from my wife's purse. When we confronted him, he lied, and when I tried to chase him down, barefoot in freezing rain, I couldn't catch him. After that, I moved us out to a crappy trailer just to get away from him. Not long after, he got arrested for stealing checks from his boss and was caught with drugs in his car. He racked up 109 felony charges and has been in prison since. My wife's mother always enabled him, and she continued to send him money even after their finances were ruined. We helped out too, until I put a stop to it. I even drove to the prison and cursed him out, which got me banned from visiting. About a year and a half later, I found out my wife had secretly been sending him money again using a credit card. She said he had called her, crying and begging, and she didn't want to tell me because she knew I'd be angry. We paid it off and canceled the card, and I thought that was the end of it. Now I've found this new JCPenney card, and I'm dreading confronting her. I know why she's doing it. She loves her brother and feels responsible for him. I don't even care about the money itself. We're doing really well for ourselves after years of hard work and struggle. We have a house, land, and savings. Divorce isn't an option. I love her and made a commitment for life. What really hurts is the lying and the hiding. I'm planning to make her agree to work extra hours to pay off this new debt without touching our savings. I'll also insist she cancels every credit account and gives me the chance to know about any others she might have. I can't change how she feels about her brother, but I want her to realize he's just using her. He's getting out in a year, and I'm preparing myself for whatever happens next. Story 15. We have a finished basement with a bathroom, and once a year, my wife's best friend visits us for the weekend. She's an awesome person, and I really couldn't think of anyone better for my wife to be best friends with. On her last visit, she came down with a nasty stomach virus on the last day. She was clearly miserable, but managed to get herself together enough to catch her flight home. The next day, I went down to the basement and used the bathroom. That's when I found the mess. She clearly hadn't made it to the toilet in time, and there was poo on the toilet lid and seat. I'm pretty sure she planned to clean it up, but probably forgot while trying to pack and feel human again. I cleaned it up myself and haven't told anyone. She's such a great friend that I'd never want to embarrass her, so I'm keeping it a secret, probably forever. Story 16. We had been dating for about 6 months and had just recently moved in together. We decided to take a road trip to Mount Rushmore in the Badlands. She was really into American gods, and we both love adventures. We were staying in this tiny South Dakota hotel, getting ready for bed. I got into bed and started watching TV while she was in the bathroom brushing her teeth. The bathroom door was cracked open, and there was a long mirror on the wall opposite the door. I glanced over and saw her reflection in the mirror. In that moment, I just kind of took it all in. I smiled, feeling sappy, thinking about how I was on this mini adventure with a girl I really liked. Thoughts like, she's perfect, she's so cool and funny, damn, she's sigh, I'm gonna marry that girl, were running through my head. Then it happened. She slightly bent forward, grabbed her ass, and spread her cheeks to let out a silent fart. Unbeknownst to her, I could see the whole thing in the mirror. Because I saw it, I could hear it too, which I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have noticed otherwise. Holding in my laughter was one of the hardest things I've ever done. She still doesn't know that I saw her do it. The funniest part? I'm almost positive I taught her that trick by quoting a line from the Bloodhound Gang song, Pennsylvania. Story 17. Last October, she sent a guy nudes. I know her Snapchat password and I checked. She asked him what he thought, and he replied that they were the most perfect pair he had ever seen. They both knew we were still dating, but there was no mention of that. It hurts just typing this out because I really like this girl. And when things are good, they're really good. Almost worth the hurt kind of good. I want to move on so badly, but I'm scared I'll never meet someone like her again. She seemed like the perfect girl. Maybe even the one. I try really hard not to think about it because she'll know something's up. But when I'm alone, I almost start crying. Sometimes I do. It kind of feels good to get this off my chest. I've been in a pretty dark place because of it, and I don't know if I can trust anyone again. Edit. I just woke up and wanted to add some details. Last night, I was really depressed when I wrote this. It doesn't occupy my mind as much as it seemed to then. It happened 5 months ago. This thread just triggered it, and I needed to let it out. I didn't expect anyone to actually read it. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. The difference lies in people who try not to make new mistakes or repeat old ones. They're the ones who deserve a second chance. I believe she regrets what she did, so I'm trying harder to forgive and move on because I really love her. When I'm with her, life just seems a lot less shitty. I forget about what she did. She's like a drug, and I'm an addict. She's the only girl who has ever made me feel this way. It's not just about S, as some people think. Just being with her makes me happy. That said, I believe in second chances, but not in third. Our relationship seems pretty healthy now, and we spend as much time together as we can. We were both going through a lot of drama at the time she did it, and that kind of gives me a reason to believe it won't happen again. One day I want to talk to her about it, to hear her side and try to make sense of it. I keep asking myself, why? And where did I go wrong? Maybe someday I'll bring it up. I'm 21, and she's 19. We're both still growing mentally. She's definitely more mature now than when we first started dating. But yeah, I believe in second chances, not in third. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If not, then it isn't. Story 18. I'm using a throwaway account for obvious reasons. My significant other and I have been together for over a decade, but we've never actually been properly intimate. He always uses a dildo instead of his own penis. For years, I just thought he was terrible in bed, but since I don't have a high libido, it didn't really bother me. He always made excuses to avoid me going down on him, and he's never been fully naked in front of me unless the room was completely dark, like blackout curtains kind of dark. One day I found the dildo, and it looked like it had been modified so he could squeeze his penis into the base. It seemed incredibly uncomfortable. The cutout portion was about the size of a lipstick tube. I don't know where he keeps it now, but it's obvious when he's using it. We'll be in bed, no mention of intimacy, and then he'll go downstairs for a minute. When he comes back, he's suddenly ready to go with a raging boner and wants to jump straight to penetration without any foreplay. It hurts me that he's kept this secret for so long. I have no idea how to bring it up, and financially I can't afford to leave him, so I just try to avoid that part of our relationship. Story 19. My wife went to her high school reunion with her best friend. Her friend texted me when they arrived saying my wife was checking their coats. Then I got a pocket purse dial from her, and I ended up listening in for hours. During the reunion, one of her dirtbag friends from high school started hitting on her and getting a bit too physical. She told him they could dance, but that was it. She never mentioned it to me, probably thinking I'd go after him. Instead, I did something better. I took the recording of that conversation and sent it to him, asking if his wife or teenage daughter would like to hear it. He tried to buy me off, offering money since he had a big job and a lot to lose. I told him to get lost and warned him that if I ever heard about him bothering anyone again, his wife would get the recording. Story 20. During a separation from my first husband, I logged into his Facebook account and discovered he was in a serious relationship with his old girlfriend. We were separated because he was physically abusive and mentally ill. One night, he held me hostage with a loaded shotgun, and I got a restraining order the next day. He was briefly held in a mental hospital but released shortly after. I lived in fear for over a year. I logged into his account because his family was feeding me lies, and I needed to know what he was doing, especially since he might get visitation with our son. What I found was evidence of drug use and dangerous behavior, which would have made him a risk to our child. I wasn't prepared to see him in a new relationship, but in a way, it helped me let go. Not long after, he committed suicide. At his funeral, I was busy managing our 2-year-old son and didn't notice if his girlfriend was there. She later posted on Facebook about her loss, and I was shunned by his friends and family. Some even blamed me for his death. I don't think he ever knew that I found out about his girlfriend. Maybe now in the afterlife, he knows. Story 21. We're not dating anymore, but I guess I'll share this anyway. During the last few months of our relationship, we were having problems. One day I saw her phone while she was using it and noticed a guy's name at the top of her Snapchat messages. They had the little smiley icon that shows they snap a lot. I wasn't suspicious at first because I'm not the jealous type, but she is that way, and she's always told me about any guys she's friends with. This guy was different, and she kept checking her phone constantly, like she was anxiously waiting for his replies. Then I went away for training for 2 weeks, and we fought a lot over text and phone calls. When I got back, she seemed more possessive with her phone. She started sleeping with it under her pillow, changed her password from 4 digits to a 6-digit code with a fingerprint scanner, and wouldn't let me use it like she used to. 1 month after we broke up, I saw a Facebook picture of her on what was clearly a double date with that guy. She always claimed to be against cheating, but I'm convinced she was at least emotionally cheating, if not more. We're still sort of friends, more like friendly acquaintances with mutual friends. She has deep emotional insecurities, especially about being perceived as a bad person. I know that if she found out I knew, she'd probably have a breakdown. I'm still not sure how to feel about it all. Story 22. My ex-fiancée used to have me come over and watch her son after I got off work. Things between us were rocky, one of those super hot and then super cold relationships. One day I picked up her son, came over to her apartment, and opened up her laptop, which was normal for us, and saw her email open. There were a bunch of new Match.com matches on the screen. I never told her I knew. A few weeks later, she bought a house without even telling me. That's not something you do if you're planning on marrying your significant other. I took it as a sign that she wanted to break up but didn't have the guts to say it, so I ended it. No hard feelings. We both moved on and married other people. A couple of years later, she messaged me saying she missed me and never really moved on. We had some deep conversations on Facebook, and I eventually let her know that I knew about her talking to other guys before we broke up. She denied it. Even now, she still posts cryptic messages on Facebook about how she misses me. It's been 7 years. Deep down, I still love her. We were young and went through a lot together, some pretty rough life experiences that made us close. But we were also immature back then. I've moved on from that chapter, and I really hope she can too. Story 23. This is late to the thread, but I haven't told anyone, so I wanted to share. My soon-to-be ex is cheating on me. He posted an ad on Craigslist's strictly platonic section, looking for a gym partner. He's been really into fitness lately. I found the post by accident. When I confronted him, he got defensive and insisted it was just about finding a workout buddy and nothing else. I pretended to drop the subject, but then logged into his email using one of his usual passwords. Sure enough, I found messages confirming that he's been hooking up with some guy. It started out innocent, just working out and chatting. But then one night, the other guy messaged him to hang out away from the gym. My soon-to-be ex met up with him, and they slept together. That same night, he had told me he was hanging out with his mom at the mall. They've been hooking up every chance they get for about 2 months now. I'm saving money and packing my stuff when he's not around. He's pretty oblivious to anything that's not right in front of him, so he hasn't noticed that boxes and bags are slowly disappearing from the closet. Our life is non-existent now, but we still sometimes laugh and eat dinner together. It's weird. He's been trying to be more romantic lately, wanting to hold hands and hug more, all while still hooking up with his gym buddy. I just applied for a new apartment and am waiting to hear back. Once I get approved, I plan to move out in one day. He has no clue, but honestly, I don't care. It's over. Story 24. This story isn't about my significant other, but rather my grandmother. On the surface, my grandmother comes across as a sweet, caring person. She'll insist on helping you with anything, even if you tell her it's not necessary. But behind closed doors, she's a terrible gossip, even about her own family. She's very concerned about how others perceive her and will say anything to maintain the image of being loving and good, even if it means lying. It's probably a combination of an old-fashioned mindset and living in a small village. My grandmother has 6 children, one of whom is my aunt. My aunt has always looked a bit different, taller and thinner than the rest, but it wasn't too surprising since my grandfather's side had similar traits. My grandmother always favored her. She didn't have to ride her bike to school like the others did, and she didn't have to do as many chores. My mom, being one of the younger siblings, noticed this favoritism and always felt it was a bit unfair. When my mom was young, she remembers seeing a man in the house at odd hours, usually late at night. She would get up for a glass of water or to use the bathroom and see this stranger standing at the door with some lame excuse, like wanting to borrow sugar at 3 a.m. At the time, my mom didn't really understand what was happening, but looking back, she now realizes what it meant. Fast forward a few years, my grandfather developed dementia. As his condition worsened, my grandmother would complain that he was forgetting things just to spite her. My mom and her siblings started planning for his care, but my grandmother resisted, probably out of fear of how it would look to others. Then a few years ago, my aunt overheard someone referring to her dad, but they weren't talking about my grandfather. The man in question had recently passed away. Confused and upset, my aunt talked to my mom, and they decided to confront my grandmother. Her reaction? A simple, dismissive, "Yes, you didn't know?" This revelation sparked a family discussion where my mom's older siblings admitted that they had seen the same man at night when they were younger. My grandmother, trying to save face, made up stories, even claiming that my grandfather raped her to have children, which was completely false. My grandfather was a gentleman and would never do something like that. It was just her way of garnering sympathy. Apparently, my grandmother and this other man had a relationship, but not one serious enough to lead to divorce or child support. It was just an affair. Despite this, my grandfather always treated my aunt like one of his own, even if he suspected the truth. Now with his dementia, he can't answer any questions. And my aunt has to come to terms with this new information without the opportunity for closure. Only half of my cousins know the truth. My mom was honest with us, and my aunt told her own children, but the rest of the family wanted to keep it quiet. One cousin accidentally found out by reading a text on her mom's phone. It's difficult to see my grandmother the same way now. I grew up seeing her as a kind, sweet woman, but it's clear now that there's a lot of hypocrisy beneath the surface. It's also sad to see my aunt struggle with the truth, while her supposed father can't even recognize her anymore. Story 25. My ex-fiance's family was always weird about him being in a relationship, and they did their best to push me out and keep him to themselves. His mother and sister were especially odd. Even when he was 26, his mom would crawl into bed with him in the morning. His sister, who was 5 years younger, was always clinging to him, sitting on his lap and just generally being overly affectionate. I put up with it for years because his parents were from another country, and I thought maybe that kind of behavior was normal there. But after we got engaged and he still wouldn't move out, I started feeling uneasy. One day, while they were all at work, I did some snooping. I don't really want to go into the specifics of what I found, but I came across multiple pieces of evidence confirming a disturbing, incestuous situation, and he was actively participating. I couldn't handle it. I told him I couldn't take the negligence and emotional turmoil he was putting me through, and gave the ring back without telling him what I knew. I stayed in touch with his best friend because we had known each other since childhood. Not long after I left, his friend figured it out too. As far as I know, it's still going on. Story 26. This is from an ex. She was cheating on me during the last few months of our relationship. The funny part is that I had suggested an open relationship from the start, but she was completely against it. I didn't really care though. The real reason we broke up was because she kept borrowing coke from my boss without paying, and he threatened to fire me if I didn't cover her debt. She wasn't good at hiding her cheating. Her phone was password protected, but she would leave it lying around, and the full notifications would still appear on the lock screen. The first red flag was when I saw a text saying, "John wants to know if you want to go out with him." I asked her about it, and she claimed it just meant going out to a bar, but she wouldn't show me the rest of the conversation. A few days later, she randomly told me that John, too, from the gas station, had asked for her number, but she didn't give it to him. Then she went to take a shower, and her phone buzzed with a text from John, too, from gas station, saying he was excited for tonight. I was scheduled to work that night, so I put two and two together. At that point, I started hooking up with a girl I used to date. When I finally broke up with my cheating ex, she tried to throw it in my face that she had been cheating on me for 3 months. I just replied, "I know. I figured you finally came around on the open relationship thing, so I've been hooking up with Jane." She called me a piece of shite. Yeah, I'm the piece of eshesh who works 6 nights a week and put in 50+ hours to support her drug habit and keep the bills paid. Apparently that's why she cheated, because I was never around. Good riddance. Story 27. I don't know the truth for sure, but here's my story. When we first started dating, she dropped the L word really quickly. I told her to be careful with that because I've been through hell before. Betrayed, abused, gaslit, cheated on, and thrown away after 7 years of supporting someone through school. I was honest with her and said that one more heartbreak might push me to the edge. Apparently that wasn't acceptable to her. She decided to go out drinking with her questionable friends at a frat house. Later she told me she was raped. I was furious and offered to pay some of my more dubious friends to handle the guys responsible, but she refused, saying she didn't want to hurt anyone. Our son was just born, and she claimed she forgot to take her birth control. The problem is, he looks nothing like me, not even close. The timeline also matches perfectly with that night at the frat house. Not even 2 weeks after his birth, she told me she's filing for child support, but still wants to stay together, live with me, and claims to love me as much as ever. Right now, I'm trying to figure out how to get a paternity test without her consent. I feel completely lost and honestly on the brink. Story 28. My long-distance ex and I had a nasty fight while she was visiting. She's originally from here, and we broke up. While we were apart, she went to a BDM club, played with the first person she met, and slept with him the next day. We started to reconcile a little bit, and she mentioned wanting to come down for her friend's birthday, but she was short on cash. Trying to smooth things over, I offered to lend her some money. She admitted what had happened at the club, and I told her that if I was helping her out financially, she couldn't go see that guy. She assured me she would only be coming to see her friend and wasn't planning any dungeon stuff. Later, I found out that she had actually visited on a completely different weekend, went straight to that guy's place, and then lied to me about being in town for her friend's birthday. We never got back together, but she still reaches out sometimes. I want to tell her that I know what she did, but I'm waiting for the right moment, one where it will make her feel the most regret. Story 29. My current girlfriend of 3 years was part of a group in high school that used to mercilessly bully me for being overweight. She wasn't directly involved, but she would make cruel suggestions on what to do with the unpopular kids they targeted. I found out about this about a year ago when I was switching phones for our new mobile plan. I'm pretty sure she knows who I am, but she's never acknowledged it. There haven't been any red flags in our relationship, but every time she goes out with that same group of friends, I can't help but wonder if this whole thing is some long con or a cruel joke. I want to confront her, but I know her response will probably be something like, "It was a long time ago. I've changed." I still struggle with confidence and social issues because of that group, and that kind of answer just wouldn't be satisfying. I'm stuck, not knowing how to move forward or if I should even bring it up. Story 30. My husband has cheated on me, or maybe still is. One night in mid-July last year, we were both pretty drunk. I was getting ready for bed since I had work the next day. We were talking about what we'd done that day and what we were looking forward to. He's a night owl and I'm a morning person, but it's never caused issues between us before. We were planning to visit our best friend who lives a few states away the following week. As we were talking, he suddenly said, "I am cheating on you." I just laughed it off, partly because I was really drunk, and partly because I thought I must have misunderstood. I joked, "What?" And he repeated it before quickly hurrying me to bed. The next day I remembered everything. I was scared, but I wanted to clarify what he meant. I asked him, "You were trying to tell me something last night. What was it?" He just laughed and said he didn't remember saying anything like that. I tried bringing it up over the next week, but he always brushed it off. I stopped asking because I didn't want to ruin our trip to see our friend. After we returned one night, I woke up and heard him talking to someone outside the door. I caught part of it. "Your light wasn't on, I didn't know." I confronted him, and he insisted that he wasn't talking to anyone, just letting an animal outside. At this point, I just want him to be accountable. He even accused me of giving him an STD after all that. I just want him to be honest and own up to what he said, but I'm too scared to bring it up again. The neighbor I suspected moved away, and now it just feels too late. I just want him to admit it so I can finally get some closure. Story 31. I know I'm late to the thread, but I really need to get this off my chest. I noticed my significant other had deleted all social media apps from his tablet, which made me suspicious. Out of curiosity, I checked his email, an app he had forgotten to remove. In the starred inbox, I found an email from a webcam site confirming that he had changed his account password. The date was from a while ago, but we were definitely dating at the time, and we had hung out later that day. I managed to guess his password and log into the account. I don't know much about sites like this, but it showed that he had positive feedback. After some Googling, I learned that it meant he wasn't just watching other people, but actually broadcasting himself. I also read that this kind of data is only saved for 6 months, so he must still be using it. It feels like I'm being cheated on, and it's made me realize that I might not know him as well as I thought. What makes it worse is that he's really jealous and doesn't like it when I wear revealing clothes. Yet he's comfortable exposing himself online. He has no idea I know, and I don't see a way to confront him without revealing how I found out. We live together, so I guess I'll just have to keep it to myself for now. Story 32. We were best friends and friends with benefits for a while before we officially started dating. I was completely sure that this guy we both knew was more than just a friend during the months right before we became official. One day I got insecure about her past and brought it up. She denied any history with him so adamantly that she ended up in tears, making me feel like a complete jerk. I decided to drop it for good and not bring it up again. Fast forward 4 months into our relationship, and I started noticing the classic signs of infidelity. Turns out she had been faking work shifts to spend the night with Mr. Just a Friend. That evening, I threw her out of my awesome loft and have not acknowledged her since. No calls, texts, emails, nothing. Since then, my life has only gotten better. I upgraded to an amazing place on a lake, nearly doubled my salary, and things are great. Right before I moved last month, I accidentally opened one of her bank statements that was still being sent to our old address. I had a mild panic attack before realizing it wasn't mine. But then I couldn't help but smile when I saw that she had a combined $7 in her checking and savings. Story 33. This one's from a past relationship, and it's not that bad, but it's still something that stuck with me. At the beginning of our relationship, my ex made a huge deal about not masturbating or watching porn while dating someone unless it was with them. He threw a fit about it and said he deleted all his porn. I couldn't believe anyone would delete 7 years worth of collected porn, dating back to his time since his ex, just for a relationship, especially when I thought the whole idea was dumb. I wasn't about to give up pleasuring myself just because I had a partner, and I made that clear. He eventually dropped the topic, and we moved on. One day I was chilling at his apartment, playing video games on his laptop while he was at work. His laptop had issues with keeping shortcuts on the desktop, so I was digging through directories to find his Steam folder. That's when I found it, a folder named Fanfic. He had made such a big deal about not having any secrets and how I could look at anything on his phone or computer. So I figured, why not? Inside was a massive folder full of hundreds of pics and videos, meticulously organized and labeled, dating back to his freshman year of college, 7 years prior, all the way up to just a few days ago. He even had a separate folder labeled with my actual name's porn, where he kept stuff I had shown him. I guess he needed to keep track of what I knew he had. Honestly, the collection had some pretty good stuff. I never told him I saw it. We broke up a year later over unrelated issues. I still have no idea why he acted like masturbating alone was so shameful while being totally fine watching the same porn with me. It's like he was more comfortable lying about it than just admitting that he liked doing it on his own. Story 34. This is about my ex. I knew for a long time that he liked another girl before our relationship ended. Whenever I brought it up, he would deny it vehemently and accuse me of being jealous. He probably talked to her more than he talked to me, commenting on her social media posts, telling her she was beautiful, and just generally giving her way more attention. I felt like an idiot. I convinced myself that I was just being jealous like he claimed, and I kept trusting him because I loved him. When he finally broke up with me, he almost immediately traveled several hours away to see her, constantly talking to her on the phone or FaceTiming her. In hindsight, I wish I had trusted my gut earlier. I wouldn't have stayed with him as long as I did. Oddly enough, I felt immediate relief when he broke up with me. I wasn't even upset about losing him. It was more about losing the people I considered family, like his brother and his brother's girlfriend. They haven't spoken to me in months, but despite that, I'm genuinely happy now. The anxiety I used to feel because of his family has finally disappeared. I learned from this experience to trust my instincts more. Story 35. This one's about my ex-wife. She started seeing her now boyfriend, the father of her third child, before we were officially divorced. At the time, we were still living together. Honestly, I don't care. We had a dead bedroom for years, and our marriage was pretty much over. I didn't pursue anyone while we were still technically together, but I don't judge her at all. It could have just as easily been me. Technically, yes, she cheated, but knowing her, I'm sure it was the only time, and I'm not even sure they had before the divorce. It was more of an emotional connection. I don't really consider it cheating. It's just life. Our marriage was done. We just hadn't filed the paperwork yet. Almost 4 years after the divorce, we've managed to become good friends again, just like we were before we dated. I'm genuinely happy for her. She's a good person, and so am I. We just married for the wrong reasons and weren't meant to be together. The good thing is that we have a great co-parenting relationship and 2 amazing kids. The kids sometimes get annoyed because we're such good friends that they can end up getting grounded twice when they mess up, once by each of us. Story 36. This one is from the past, but it's a funny memory now. One year, my wife planned a surprise trip to New York City for my birthday. She was so excited about keeping it a secret. She gets really giddy when she pulls off surprises. About a month before the trip, I asked to use her computer for something. When I opened it, I saw a hotel confirmation for Times Square on my birthday weekend. I quickly closed it and pretended not to see. Then I overheard her talking loudly on the phone about it to a friend. I just acted clueless. At the airport, she kept pretending it was still a surprise. We went through customs, and she even roped in the customs officer to play along. At one point, she saw a colleague on the other side of the glass and loudly said, "New York!" I ignored it. As we approached the gate, I even joked, "Cover my eyes so I don't see the sign." Even on the plane, I wore headphones during announcements. As we approached the city, I shut the window shade to avoid seeing the skyline. A kid behind us yelled, "Look, Mom, it's New York." My wife asked if I heard that, and I just played dumb, saying, "Is this Chicago?" When we landed, she was getting a bit frustrated that I still didn't know where we were. After we got off the plane, I finally admitted that I had seen the hotel confirmation email a month ago and had pieced everything together. She was a little bummed that the surprise was spoiled, but we laughed about it and went on to enjoy New York. Story 37. I knew my now husband was going to propose about 4 months before he actually did. We had missed an insurance renewal letter, so he asked me to open all the mail regardless of whose name was on it. One day I opened a credit card statement and saw the charge for my engagement ring. I freaked out and immediately called my best friend to share the news. Not long before this, he had to run an errand and came home super excited, but refused to tell me what it was about. That was unusual for him because we share everything, so it was a big deal for him to keep it a secret. He told me I'd find out in a few months. Once I saw the statement, I realized he was planning to propose at EDC since we had planned to go, and he had gotten a bunch of our friends to join us. I carefully resealed the envelope with Elmer's glue and hid it in a magazine so it looked untouched. I didn't tell him I knew until several months after he proposed. If that wasn't enough, during a Mother's Day celebration that year, his grandmother congratulated me and welcomed me to the family, basically confirming what I already knew. Even though I was aware of the proposal, it was still the most perfect surprise engagement at EDC. Story 38. When my wife and I were dating, our relationship was pretty rocky. She had invited me as her date to 2 weddings before, but I didn't go to either. When her sister was getting married, I finally agreed to go. But just a few days before the wedding, she made up some excuse about why I couldn't attend, so I didn't. Honestly, I was relieved because I was too nervous about meeting her family. I assumed her folks already knew about our rough relationship. A few years later, after we got married, her brother-in-law and I got drunk one night, and he told me that my wife had actually gone to that wedding with her ex. I found out when our daughter was 6 months old. It pisses me off to this day, but I've tried to just let bygones be bygones. Still, it bothers me a lot, especially considering the history between them. Story 39. My ex cheated on me pretty much throughout our entire relationship. We started dating when he was about to leave for basic training. He charmed me into waiting for him to get back, and I did. We had great chemistry and some good times, but then things started getting weird. He stopped answering his phone when I was around, disappeared for long hours at odd times, and always came home from work late. One day I saw him with a girl while I was out, purely by chance. He told me she was in his army unit and was a lesbian who needed someone to talk to about her relationship issues. Then suddenly she started showing up at everything we did, literally everything. I was so naive that I didn't think much of it, even when he would vanish for hours when she was around. Eventually I caught on and told him it wasn't working out. I started seeing other people, and he wanted to stay friends. I agreed, feeling bad because his home life was terrible, and I thought he just needed someone he trusted. A few months later, she followed me on Tumblr by chance. I found out that they had been engaged since before I broke up with him, and he had framed me as some home-wrecking slut who threatened to self-harm if he ever left me. I immediately blocked her, deleted his number, and never spoke to him again. Story 40. My husband has a much-loved son from a previous relationship. The story he always told me was that his son was planned after a whirlwind romance, even though he had only been with the mother for about 2 or 3 months. They got married during the pregnancy. He had a lot of justifications for his mindset at the time. The story was both in character and a bit out of character, but I accepted it. A few years ago, while I was spot-checking his email, something he knows I do, long backstory there, but it was a condition for me staying, I came across an old high school friend who had reconnected with him. They were catching up and doing that thing where you summarize the past 20 to 30 years of your life. In his version, he didn't explicitly say his ex-baby trapped him, but the wording was ambiguous enough to hint at it, especially when combined with other bits of information I knew. I put the pieces together and realized that it wasn't as planned as he always made it sound. Still, he would rather walk over hot coals than let anyone in his son's life think that he wasn't 100% wanted and planned. I'll never tell him I know. Story 41. My wife doesn't know that I know she's been seeing someone else. I also discovered she's been sharing X-rated pictures with a longtime friend of mine. I now suspect they might have hooked up a long time ago while we were still married. She has a pattern of accusing me of various indiscretions, but only after she's done exactly what she's accusing me of. I confronted her once, and our life went wild for about 6 months because I was the only one she was communicating with. At the start of 2017, I went back to working 60-hour weeks, giving her more time to start talking to whoever it is. We've been separated for a month now, and today, Easter Monday, I have the kids while she's supposedly Gone for a drive with a friend to the airport. The airport is an hour and a half away, so the round trip will take 8 hours. Yesterday she shaved, using my last new razor, and left the house all dolled up with makeup I haven't seen in a decade, bringing along condoms I found in the bedside drawer last week. We've been married for 14 years, and she hasn't done any of that for me in years. I'm pretty sure she gets off on the secrecy. When she comes home drunk and well-fed later, I'm planning to ask her if her date was nice. I've got my own date planned for next week, but she's been locking me down with the kids every weekend while she goes out and has fun. I'm just biding my time. Story 42. Early in our relationship, my girlfriend made up a male coworker to make me jealous. We had been dating for just a few weeks when she texted me, saying she probably wouldn't be free that evening because she was going to get drinks with a guy from work. She said he had been bugging her, and she just wanted to humor him so he'd leave her alone. I told her that I'm not usually the jealous type, but I didn't know this guy and he sounded a bit sketchy. In the end, I said it was up to her. I think we were on the verge of getting serious and she was testing me. Not long after, she called me back and said she didn't feel right about it and was going to stay home instead. She invited me over, and that was the first time I spent the night with her. Later on, I suspected that the guy was fictional because she never mentioned him again, even though she frequently talks about her actual coworkers and their random quirks. It doesn't bother me now. I guess it was just her way of seeing how I'd react. Story 43. I used to live in a flat share with my best friend. We were known for throwing great parties, and every time we had one, I would end up hooking up with my female best friend. She's really attractive and naturally draws attention, so it wasn't exactly a secret when she and I would disappear into my room. She's also loud during and I liked banging the walls, so yeah, people definitely noticed. After the parties, my best friend and I would always catch up, laugh about the night, and he would ask me how it went with her. I'd tell him how wild it was and all the details, because I knew he was curious. One day I even suggested he try sleeping with her himself, saying I wouldn't mind. He laughed it off, saying he could never do that to me. About a year later, he moved to another city. Before leaving, we had a deep conversation, and he admitted that he had actually slept with her, but she asked him not to tell me. I acted surprised, but I already knew. A few months after I had suggested it, I noticed he wasn't as curious about my hookups with her anymore. That's when I figured out he had already gotten with her too. Story 44. This just happened a week or two ago, and it's tearing me apart. My girlfriend and I have been together since high school, 9 years total, and have lived together for about 7. We're also guardians of her younger brother since her parents passed away. Lately, we haven't been doing great, but I've always loved the good parts of our relationship. I thought we were strong and could overcome the little arguments, which were usually about me doing something dumb or not doing chores. In hindsight, I wish I had tried harder. One day, she told me she needed space and suggested taking a break. I agreed, trying to make the best of it. She assured me she wouldn't go out and cheat, but I'm apparently a really jealous person because I went through her phone and found out she had kissed another guy. She insisted it was a mistake, and I tried to move on. Then I started noticing subtle changes, how she looked at her phone, the way she smiled at texts. I realized she was falling in love with these random guys, and I found out she slept with 2 of them. It's killing me. I've confronted her several times, and she keeps saying we both need space to work on ourselves. I know I should move out, but she doesn't have a job and would lose the place. I'm stuck loving her and hating her at the same time. It's brutal watching her move on so quickly. I just need someone to tell me I'm not crazy for feeling this way. Story 45. This isn't a secret my husband is keeping from me, but rather from everyone else. We're in our early 30s and don't have kids because he has premature ejaculation. It wasn't always this way, but now he avoids altogether, and it's put a strain on our relationship. Sometimes I snap at him and look like a real bitch in front of others because it seems like I'm the one who doesn't want kids. When people ask about it, he'll just say, "Ask her," which makes it look like I'm the problem. It's so hard pretending we're fine and lying about wanting kids. It's especially tough knowing that women in my family go through menopause earlier than most. To make it worse, I was recently diagnosed with a heart condition that might prevent me from having kids, and I can't help but think we could have had children years ago if he had addressed his issues. He's a good person, and he's always been good to me in every other way. But this secret has shattered everything I hoped for in our marriage.